We have a simple window here with a stack panel and two elements inside, a button and a text block. They don't define any sizes. By default, in the vertical stack panel, elements occupy as much space as they can horizontally and as minimum as they can vertically. In order to make a button and the text block not so small, I've set font size to 24 and height to 45. Let's look at the code behind. I've handled here a layout updated event. In the handler, I set the text of a text block in order to display the default width and actual width. Let's run the application and look at what happens when we resize the window. By the red border, you can see the visual boundaries of the button. When I stretch the window, the button gets wider and wider. When I shrink the window, it gets narrower. And by the way, you can notice that the default width is not a number. Let's set the min width and max width. I'll set the min width to 230 and max width to 400. And let's run the application. When I stretch the window, the button gets wider until it reaches 400 units in width. When I shrink the window, the button gets narrower until it reaches 230 units. If I continue to shrink the window, you can see that the button gets cropped on the right border. There is no red border. Let's set the width explicitly. I'll set the width to 350. And now let's run the application. When the width is set explicitly, then min width and max width are ignored, so the button stays 350 units in width no matter what we're doing with the window. Let's look at what margin is. I'll set margin for the button. There are 4 ways to set margin. The margin can be defined by one number. I'll get rid of the width. In this case, as you can see in the designer, this number becomes the margin for all sides of the control. If you define the margin by 2 numbers, then the first one defines left and right side margins, and the second one defines top and bottom side margins. The third possible way is to set margins by 4 numbers. Let's do it. In this case, the first number sets the left side margin, the second top side margin, the third right side margin, and the fourth the bottom side margin. The last property I want to show is the visibility property. Let's set visibility to collapsed on the button. I'll set it to collapsed. And as you can see now, the button doesn't occupy any space and is completely invisible. Let's change the visibility to hidden. Now the button is invisible, but it still occupies so much space as it is visible. Now you know how to size your elements. Great! Let's get acquainted with positioning elements.